Me actually, I don't really need to do this, but as long as I would never be forced to say something in Korean, it's really fine. Do you have a scene in live? I really don't mind. It's really never been difficult. Toppers were poor. I don't actually watch in live coverage. Goat stories. Plus, the winner is Todd Tillman. Congratulations. The winner is a Todd Tillman. Todd Tillman is really the winner. Congratulations. The winner is. But I don't really need to actually. Todd Tillman. Why do I have to have to? When the consumer just should be taken as a victim to be. Yeah, sometimes consumers fall prey to overly charged products, right? Overestimated prices. Yeah, it's really nice. You know what? It's better to actually listen to NPR because you should never actually watch anything. Yeah, definitely NPR should be the one. There should be no pictures. No pictures. So he starts saying, well, I think people should actually be cautious for good reasons because so far there is no development of vaccinations that might actually immunize the rest of the population. So in terms of interacting with other human beings in a closed space, it's better to actually pay no caution, right? Pay attention to the situation. You should actually be wary of getting affected by the coronavirus if you actually meet someone in a closed space. If you do not actually go outside and keep the social distance between you and the rest of people, then there could be a possibility for second round of infections with a much numerous outbreaks of the coronavirus. I have no idea. I just actually decided to play the live NPR. Businesses now trying to operate their business once more. Actually getting into the situation. I don't really need to. It's a very obvious. If you ever actually want me to anything, yeah. We're a cargo pilot, I know. Let me actually don't watch anything. And if you ever wanted to see, the volume so far, it's a pretty much reasonable, right? Yeah, Cyclone, that's right. So can I actually stop it? A very harsh, typhoon somehow makes its landfall to affect the millions to actually be evacuated from the houses, right? Because this is really the area between the West Bengal and East India. The actual region is shared between Bangladesh and India. 2.4 million people in Bangladesh that were actually being at least displaced to somewhere else. It's a very, tough for them to actually, leave this experience, especially during the coronavirus crisis, because they were really affected. And it's really interesting. But one good news about the situation is, at least in the first place, the typhoon was measured to be category 5, but at least its power has been subsumed and dissipated. The eye of the storm, which is really the core and a kernel of the energy, somehow actually gets weakened. So it has been reduced to category 2. At least the power itself is somehow decreased. This is really a good news about it. But the problem is, when people living nearby the Kolkata, they actually experience such a powerful winds smashing their houses to actually get the roofs off and knock down trees. These type of events were already lived and it's still ongoing. For that reason, people, at least 2.4 million people from Bangladesh, at least more millions from India, are actually making themselves completely emptied out. There is a mandate to actually displace themselves and vacate the region because of the the typhoon. This is really the typhoon, but if you ever actually put it in the actual estimation of the power, it could actually be equivalent to category 5 for hurricane and super typhoon and hurricane storm. You could ever actually use a similar method to measure and tailor the prowess and the power of it. This is what has been said. At least one good news in the midst of a tragedy overwhelming the people in the region who should actually empty out the place, who should actually vacate and leave out the place and empty out the place as immediately as possible to survive, is that the power that has been concentrated in the eye of the storm gets weakened to at least make this storm a category 2. In the first place, it was estimated to be the category 5. As far as I know, this is the highest level. Hurricane Katrina was a category 5 to completely demolish and disparage the civilization in New Orleans in 2005. And it's really sad to hear the story, because keeping a social distancing in the midst of chaos, amid the chaotic disaster, would be so difficult. And this would have caused a much vulnerable situation, because when people were supposed to keep social distancing, but now they were brought into such a shelter where no capacity can be enough to even just simply accept people. Yeah, fleeing away from storms and devastation. That's really the case. Huracan is a hurricane. The storm is a really storm. And the hurricane is a huracan. I've already actually said that. And typhoon. Typhoon is a really normally for the eastern area. Cyclone for Australia. Cyclone, Australia, New Zealand, and a hurricane for normally for the United States and Europe. And the storms, it could be everywhere, right? But typhoons are really the case of meteorological phenomenon common in Asia. Yeah. In Calcutta, people actually were gravely affected by the massive wind blowing in. And the gust of winds are so powerful that would immediately disparage the constructions in the regions. The buildings were completely deranged with the roofs derobed and removed. It's really overwhelming. I mean, that's what has been said. It's really sad to hear this. People are being migrants. They're actually running away from their homeland. They have no place to go.